First of all, my name is Seifert. I'm the president of U.S. Risk Underwriters. We are a large specialty insurance organization out of Dallas, Texas. We're actually the fifth largest company that does what we do within the insurance industry in the United States. And we basically look at new emerging industries and try to develop insurance products that will help those industries grow or mitigate their risk as they grow. So that's kind of the specialty market that we're into.
You're ready.
I think the thing that surprised me the most about the Congress and the meeting we've been holding here is just how international it is. I mean, there are literally people from all over the world, and the level of buzz, the energy that's been at this conference. We do a lot of these types of meetings, and it's unusual to see this kind of representation and this kind of excitement. But because it's such a new and emerging medical service model, everybody has ideas about how they'd like to see it go, and it's going to be interesting to see just how those materialize, and if people can execute on some really good business plans that I've heard since I've been here. I think the real key is going to be how well do they execute, and how does this take shape and actually get some traction and move forward. My background, as I said earlier, is kind of creating new products for the industry. I've been doing it for a long time. I've been in the insurance industry for over 30 years, and I've been doing new products for about 15 years. And I've been looking at the medical tourism industry emerge through the media for about 3 or 4 years. And the one thing that I saw, and we did some extensive interviewing to kind of confirm my intuition, was that an average person in the United States traveling overseas to some place like India or Malaysia or Singapore, the reticence and the hesitation is, even if there's good care there, what happens if I have work done overseas, come back to the United States, and some sort of medical complication develops? Will I see all the savings that I was hoping for by having the work done overseas evaporate the additional costs that I need to expend in order to get whatever kind of surgery needs to be corrected? So we saw that if we could come up with an insurance product that filled that gap and transferred that risk away from the individual to an insurance policy, that might in fact help to grow the industry. We call it taking the what if out of medical tourism. So we've partnered with AIG to develop an insurance product that covers medical complications. Once the client is back in the United States, the medical complications develops, they have coverage in order to get put back into good health. There's essentially 3 distribution models. One is a policy sold to a medical facilitator who buys it for their overall operation. So every one of their clients would have this value-added benefit if they were to purchase the services from this particular medical facilitator. And they will pay for that as a corporation, not the individual. There'll have to be some cost loading back into the cost of the services in order to cover it, I'm sure. But basically, it's the policy that covers the facilitator and therefore covers all of their clients when they go overseas. That's distribution model number 1. We also know there's a lot of individuals that will seek to arrange their own travel and bypass a facilitator, maybe going directly to hospitals. And there are several hospitals that are now setting up their own sort of medical tourism facility internally within the hospital itself. For those people, we're building a web-enabled portal that they could go to buy the insurance on the web. And we will partner with different portals that are already in existence in order to facilitate individuals being able to buy insurance on a trip-by-trip basis. And then the third model, which we haven't got completely worked out yet, but we're working on, would be an international model where the hospitals themselves could offer at the point of sale additional insurance coverages. So as a person is going through their admittance process, they would be offered the chance to buy medical complications coverage at the point of service. So those are the 3 models that we're working with presently. There's little side distributions to those as well. One is the medical insurance companies in the United States themselves who seem still hesitant to be sending people overseas. A lot of that hesitancy is driven by vicarious liability that they might assume by recommending somebody go overseas to have work done. Something bad happens, they come back to the United States, they blame the insurance company that sent them. So we think there's also a market with the insurance companies themselves buying this product so they can offer their clients a solution. And then large self-insured groups who want to use medical tourism as a cost containment feature to their plan, they could buy this product to protect themselves from any potential liability that might flow up after a bad result. It's a much more complicated situation below the surface than people realize. The medical insurance companies have relationships with hospitals here in the United States that they have to maintain in order to drive costs down here domestically as much as they possibly can. So there's probably hesitancy on their part to start sending people overseas because it might impact those relationships. I think what you'll see eventually is that the force of the market will make it so that they have to look at other options. And they may split off a separate company within their company to deal with those kind of things in order to maintain the relationships domestically. But I think it's the force of the wave that's coming through right now in terms of cost differential, depending on where you have the services performed, is going to force them to look at their options. But they're not going to go. They're not going to go into this lightly. It's going to be, you know, they're going to leave their fingernail marks as they send people overseas. You know, I think I had dinner while I was here with the CEO of a hospital company in India, also a cardiovascular surgeon, and the cost differential from an infrastructure standpoint in India versus the United States is so significant. For them to build a state-of-the-art, out-of-the-ground hospital, which they have, no film, no paper in place, it's all digital. He can sit here in his hotel room and on the internet pull up his ORs and look at it and monitor what's going on. So we're talking about a state-of-the-art hospital built for $80 a square foot. That same hospital in the United States would cost probably $450 to $500 a square foot. The cost of operating his operating rooms, $500 to $600 a day. In the United States, it's $4,000 to $5,000 an hour. So there are cost differentials there that just can't be overlooked, you know, and they're real and they're there. So I think the dynamics really becomes you've got a consistent and growing demand, especially as the boomers age, and also boomers are going to be accustomed to being in better health than our parents were. They expect that. They expect to live longer. They expect to live healthier as they live longer. So you're going to see a growing demand, and the supply in the United States, the medical model that exists today, won't be able to handle that supply. So it's just, like I said, it's almost like a wave. It's going to push people overseas, you know, just as a matter of course. The negative that popped out at me again when I was having dinner the other night is that, and I'll use India as an example, there is a huge disparity between how the indigenous people in India, the level of health care that they can afford and that can be afforded to them versus the level of health care for those people that are traveling abroad to India. And I think you're going to see this in all the developing, you know, and developed and developing countries. And at some point, it's going to cause some sort of social unrest, I think, because when people see, you know, that you can't have that much of a divide between the two. And there are some unique solutions that people are looking at. The same hospital group in India requires each of their physicians, who are very highly paid even by American standards, to donate 1 day's salary to a pool. And with that pool, 20% of their beds are set aside for people that can't afford to have those medical services performed. So I think it's going to be up to the medical tourism industry and the different countries that have set up you know, special councils to monitor, to come up with some way to make sure that they're serving their own population as well, so that we don't see a big spread in the availability of health care between the indigenous people in a country and those that are traveling abroad to have services performed. I've seen new industries before the medical industry develop, and I've seen associations that grow up beside those associations, I mean, those new medical models. And to me, the pivotal role that an association like this can play is if the industry isn't self-regulated, then some other regulating body will step in to regulate that industry. And when that happens, things get complicated, additional costs get added to the model, etc. So I think a strong association that understands that one of its roles will be to self-monitor. And I think one of the messages you've heard here over the last several days very clearly is transparency, 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 quality of care, quality of care, quality of care. You know, it's like in real estate, it's location, location, location. It's the same sort of thing. If we fail as an association and as an industry to afford transparency, and if we fail in monitoring the quality of care, you know, you could have 500,000 people go overseas and have good results. It's that one bad result that'll get all the press, and it'll have an impact that people just don't realize how negative it will be. So to me, the key role the association can play is as a force of communication between the different pieces of the medical tourism industry, whether that's the foreign country or the hospitals in the foreign countries and so forth, but pushing accreditation, whatever form that takes, whether it's an international accreditation or a local accreditation, and then the transparency and the quality of care. Those are to me, the areas where the association can be most impactful. When we develop a new product, we almost always try to align ourselves with the trade association or the professional association that represents that industry. And our products are now endorsed and sponsored by the Medical Tourism Association. We do that for a couple of reasons. One is it gets us access to data that we need in order to market our products. But more importantly, the association typically knows who the good players are and who the bad players are. So we'll use them as a sounding board too to learn more about the industry and to know who the good players are. The last thing we want to do is be affording insurance to the people that aren't the ones that are supportive of the industry moving forward in a quality sort of way.
Right. And anything we leave out, anything you want to put out there?
I think I come back to one of the points I made in the beginning of the interview, and that is execution. You know, there's an awful, I've heard some business stories that while I've been here, one that's about to be launched in the end of November, that they say they've got a model that's going to generate 100,000 clients a month. Well, I hope that's true and I hope they buy my product. But you know, there's a lot of hype right now and there's a lot of buzz. So it really is going to, how does that translate into actual business being performed? And I think that if we can, even if we can capture 50% of the results that people are estimating, that this will be a solid industry going forward.